Great. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the JTDA Tech Talk Tuesdays. My name is Trevor Forrest. I will be your host this evening. Um, Today's topic is how to protect yourself against cyber attacks. Now, this is a very, very important topic. We have, uh, some really great conversation to have. We have two eminently qualified guests to delve into the specifics of how to protect yourself, whether you're individual or business, from cyber attacks. So we're going to get into that. But before we do, I just have some housekeeping to do. First, I want to let you know that um, the next Tech Talk Tuesday, which will be on May 30th, will be another very important topic, is getting prepared for the Data Protection Act, which comes into force on December 1 this year. I also want to let you know that you can follow the JTDA on social media, on all social media platforms. It's at the JTDA. Um, I also want to let you know about an event that's coming up in May, May 11 to 14. The Jamaica Constabulary Force is having a very interesting technology symposium. It's called JCF Transformations. Title is People, Quality, and Technology, and a lot of the technologies and capabilities of the JCF will be on show. The admission is free, so that is something that you want to save the date, put it in your calendar, and try to attend. A lot of interesting stuff, things like Jamaica Eye and the technical capabilities, or some of them at least, of the JCF will be on show there. So let's get started. So as the world becomes more dependent on technology, as it becomes more connected, what we're seeing is that cyber attacks are on the increase, right? And not only are they on the increase, they're becoming more and more sophisticated. And what this means now is that individuals and businesses have to start to pay more attention. You have to be more vigilant, and you have to invest, if you're a business, in ways to protect yourself against these attacks. Um, Cybercrime is expected to become the most costly component for businesses because of the increase in the use of technology. Um, and I mean, when we're talking about the world we live in, a cyber attack occurs every 40 seconds, right? Um, and because of that, we have to be extremely careful when we're doing things online, especially given the fact that we're using more and more digital technology, right? So on top of that, um, the types of attacks that we're seeing are very interesting. The most popular type of attack is an attack called phishing, and we're going to get into all of these things as we speak with our panelists. But the most popular attack is phishing. The top three most expensive attacks are inside attacks, ransomware, and web-based attacks. Right, ransomware alone in 2020 saw an increase of over 400%. Right, that's staggering. So you kind of get an idea that cyber attacks and cyber threats are increasing. Now, just to give you an example of why this is happening, when you look at the cost of cybercrime and cyber attacks globally, last year it was projected to cost globally, the cost is about $6 trillion. By 2025, it's projected to be about 10 trillion. And to put that into context, that is more than all the illicit transnational crimes combined. right? So cyber crimes and the attendant cyber attacks are extremely good business, right? So you're going to find that as we move into the digital age more and more, as we depend more on technology, we're going to find that a new sort of crime will emerge, and it is important for us to understand how these things work, understand how to protect ourselves. And to do that, we have two eminently qualified individuals to talk about it. First, we have, um, a gentleman that is well known in the um, cybersecurity practitioner circles. He's Mr. Rory Ebanks. He's the director of cyber and information security at Symptai Consulting Limited. Our other guest is he's Deputy Superintendent Warren Williams. Warren is the second in command at the Communication Forensics and Cybercrimes Division within CTOC, which is the Counterterrorism and Organized Crime Investigative Unit for the JCF. Can't get no better than that, right? So what we're going to do right away is get into, and welcome, gentlemen. You're hearing me okay? Warren, Rory?
Welcome, Trevor.
Yes.
Nice to be here.
Great. So let's get into it. We know cyber crimes and cyber attacks are on the rise. It's getting crazy out there. Rory, let me start with you. What are some of the major types of cyber attacks that are affecting businesses in Jamaica? And we're going to keep it in context in Jamaica. And what are some of the major attacks that we're seeing out there?
So some of the major attacks that we're seeing, it does vary, but specifically to Jamaica, when ransomware is on top of the list. And ransomware is pretty much where an attacker tries to take control of your data, meaning gain access to your information, lock you out of it, and ask you to pay some type of money. So literally they're holding you at ransom. If we want, we can even get into more details in terms of how they deliver these ransom. And you actually touched on it, so phishing. But I would even go broader than phishing and use social engineering, because social engineering covers phishing, smishing, vishing, and to break it down simple.
Okay, so phishing. You start using whole heap of terms, right?
I'm gonna explain.
So what I would want you to do is break down each one for the audience. Let us know phishing, vishing, smishing, all of these things. Break it down so everybody can understand what these things are, how you catch them, sound like disease, and eventually we'll talk about how we can protect ourselves against it. So break it down for us, Rory.
All right, so with phishing, and it's PHISHING, so not the FISHING.
Okay.
So phishing it's pretty much using email communication to try and trick persons to click on a link, submit information, or just for them to transmit some type of malware or malicious file to them. So typically, ransomware is delivered over phishing emails. There are different ways to deliver it, but that's one of the most common ways. Then we speak about smishing, which is SMS or text message using WhatsApp to communicate with the target. So it could be sending a WhatsApp message, sending a text message to try and trick someone to click on a link, visit a website. And we get it a lot. It may be termed lot of scamming. It's similar to smishing or to even phishing, saying that you have won a prize. You need to click on this link. You need to send me some money to access the prize. This is smishing. You even can go a step further and speak about vishing, which is using phone calls, meaning voice calls. So you're trying to communicate with someone. You get their phone number, you call them, again tell them that it's typically enticing, meaning that you would have won something. It's trying to appeal you to submit some information. It's trying to get you to click on some links. It's trying to say, this is my username, this is my password. And you have different type of pretext that they may use. So, for example, in the Christmas period, they may use, say, Christmas bonus. They may use, say, that you have won a Christmas cake. We just came out of Easter, the Easter bun given away. These are some of the types of pretexts that attackers may utilize. And especially in Jamaica, they want it to be relatable. So they may say that, hey, you have won a digital credit. Click this link and try and access the information. Just submit your email address, just submit your username, and just sign up for an account, because most of the times we use the same password across different platforms, which is a very big risk. One of the other type of attacks.
Once you click on the link, that's where them get you.
That's how they get you. And sometimes you have even clicked on a link and you don't even know that you're compromised. Because again, the aim may be that they're trying to collect information or collect data. It may not be that they're initially trying to compromise you. Because we have seen cases where a compromise had happened maybe a year ago. And this happens a lot with big organizations. A year and a half in is when the compromise is actually materializing, meaning that they would have compromised a user, trying to understand the environment, trying to gain information about the environment, taking their time through the network because they don't want to get detected. And then, boom, you hear that your data is leaked. You hear that you're locked out of your system. So sometimes it's not just immediate. It's not a case where you just download a malware or malicious software and then that's it. Sometimes the attackers sit around for a while.
Right. So these guys can be very patient. So and I know because we have a term in the cybersecurity realm where we say two types of business: those that have been hacked and those that have been hacked and don't know it yet.
Don't know about it.
So yeah. So let me go to Warren. Warren, as somebody who is in the law enforcement space as it relates to cyber, what kind of activity are you seeing out there, reported or not, that is impacting businesses and individuals currently in Jamaica? What does the landscape look like from the law enforcement lens?
I would say electronic fraud, because since more and more persons are, gravitating or migrating, in the different sectors of the society, is being forced, business and individuals, to go online to do many types of businesses, transactions online. We see a lot of fraudulent activity online, which is termed electronic fraud, where persons may, transfer funds online, do their banking online. A lot of that happens, and also, we sometimes see, uh, you know, these things popping up right across the whole sections of Jamaica. But that's the main one. Outside of that, other than electronic fraud, ransomware to a lesser extent, not as much as electronic fraud, on the unauthorized access to data. So persons are able to get into business and private persons' data wherever it's stored unauthorizedly, get into the data. You see sometimes identity theft and things like that. But at the top of it right now, electronic fraud takes the leads where millions of dollars, and I won't call no institutions. I won't, but it's quite a huge figure that is being lost daily. And I have to be very careful what I'm saying on this platform because I don't want people to get scared. Technology is here for the good. It's for economic growth and development. But with it, the side, there's also the downside of it, and persons must be educated as to what is happening around them.
Well,
Yes, Trevor.
unlike you, Warren, I am not afraid to say what the numbers are because we have a general idea of what the numbers as it relates to losses attributed to cybercrime in Jamaica. I mean, as far back as 2016, we were talking about $100 million,
Yes.
right? And that's not Jamaica.
And that's only reported.
That's exactly. That's only the reported,
Australia.
right? So this is serious business going on here. And I can only imagine that perhaps that number has gone up in recent years. So it is a serious thing. So from the lens of law enforcement, a lot of fraud, electronic fraud, some ransomware here and there, and so on. So we see that, but let me ask something, and let me direct this at Rory. Most times, individuals, but more so businesses, feel that nobody not targeting them. This is Jamaica, we're small. We're not a United States, we're not a UK, we're not a Canada, we're not a Germany, we're not a Russia, right? Why would people want to target businesses in Jamaica? Separate and apart from the fact that we can fleece $100 million a year US, but why is it that we represent a ripe target for these threat actors?
And what I would say, in the eyes of an attacker, money is money. It doesn't matter if they're getting it from a huge organization or a small organization. It doesn't matter if they're getting it from US, Canada, Jamaica, any country in the Caribbean. Money is money for them. So the end goal for them is to find a way to easily try and get lucrative cash, lucrative funds. And as Warren would have mentioned, electronic fraud is one of those means. So it's a prime target. A lot of time, companies would think that, yes, I'm in Jamaica, but remember, when you're connected to the internet, it's not necessarily bound to a location unless you have certain parameters in place to restrict how your systems can be connected. However, if you're connected to the World Wide Web, it is global, meaning someone in China, in Russia, and anywhere in the world can try and launch an attack. When you look on some of the attacks that are coming in also, it's thousands of attacks. Even in the second, it's a lot of attacks that are coming in, originating from all different areas in the country, all different areas in the world. And a lot of time these attacks are automated. So they're doing reconnaissance, meaning they're trying to identify vulnerabilities. They're trying to identify weakness. They may look on Jamaica and say, okay, they may not be properly patching or updating their systems. So let's just test the water. They're sending out these what's called bots to automatically try to identify vulnerabilities and weakness. Once they identify that, then they may say, okay, let's try and actually spend some time and exploit some of these vulnerabilities or weaknesses. But most of the time, they're just pretty much shooting blindly. And if Jamaica is going to cook on that bait, then they will follow through with it.
Absolutely. So here's what. And I'm looking in our comments section, and I see that we've been joined by another luminary in the space, Mr. Patrick Linton. Hey, look, Patrick. See you.
Hey, Patrick.
Patrick is actually like the Warren Williams, but in Mocha. The money is, again, law enforcement, top people in the cyberspace. So here's what I want to focus on. I want to focus on the areas of fraud, phishing, and so on. And what I kind of want to drill down on is how can, not only businesses, but individuals protect themselves against, these different types of attacks, these different attacks that are perpetrated. And so I'm gonna start first with how businesses can do it. And I'm gonna start with you, Rory, but I'm also I want to explore, because it's not a matter of if it will happen, it's when it happens. And And what I kind of want to do is to focus on, okay, when an attack happens, what should an individual or a business do? I would suspect they should contact law enforcement. And that's where I would want, Warren to chime in to kind of give businesses and individuals some advice and some direction as to how to treat with attacks when they occur. So first to you, Rory. Let's talk about phishing. How can businesses and individuals kind of protect themselves against phishing attacks, since it's the most popular one out there, and it is responsible for a whole lot of other mayhem? How can businesses and individuals protect themselves against phishing attacks?
So there are different ways to protect against phishing, but I would say one of the most important thing is to understand what phishing is. So it comes with training, sensitization, and this goes both business and individual. So it doesn't matter if you're a company, it doesn't matter if you're a single person, it doesn't matter how you look on it. You have to be educated about the risks, about how to identify a phishing email, because I would say, like, for example, 5 years ago, when we heard about like phishing emails happening, there were some simple grammatical errors that you could pick up on. Misspellings, it's not very convincing. Even the domain names that you're using, meaning you see in www.symptai.com and it's a clear misspelling there. Attackers are getting more sophisticated now. They don't have misspellings. Even when we are conducting our social engineering campaigns for companies, sometimes we leave those hints in. But if we're doing more advanced phishing exercises, we will not leave grammatical errors. We will have email footers that are looking legitimate, meaning if it's coming from a company, we're putting the full company email footer, meaning you have to look out for the phone numbers that are on it, what the footer is representing, the correct logos, how it's addressing you. It typically a phishing email may be very generic if it's going out to thousands of persons. However, if they're doing a more targeted phishing email, they will address it. Rory, you have won a prize. This is how you access it, and be very detailed. Normally, it's very urgent also, meaning that you have to act now. It's not a case where you're going to act in an hour. It's typically you have to act now. So you have to look out for those things. You can also employ security tools and devices. So for example, email filters, spam filters, those are certain tools that you can have in place. You can ensure that your email gateway is configured. And I don't want to get too technical, but you may hear stuff like DMARC and SCIM. So these are security headers or parameters that you need to configure on your email server, which would ensure that whatever emails are coming in are authenticated, are legitimate. This is typically done by the organizations. From an individual perspective, if you're utilizing like your Gmail, your Hotmail, your Microsoft accounts, they do have certain level of security built into it. So for example, if a particular phishing email is sent, if an attachment is in it, normally it would execute the attachment before. So it's pretty much executed in a sandbox, which may be like an isolated environment. However, you still need to ensure that your devices also have antivirus on it. So just in case you download that attachment and it is a malicious software, your tool should flag it. And a lot of time these attacks happen over your mobile device. So you may be thinking about, I'm only accessing my email over my laptop, so only my laptop needs to have antivirus. Your phone also needs to have antivirus. Most of the times when you open your email, it's over your phone. And a lot of persons, they don't have any type of security protection on their devices. They don't have any type of scanners on their devices. Sometimes attackers actually target mobile-based attacks to say that, okay, yes, I know your company or your corporate laptop has an antivirus on it, but what about your phone? What if I send you an email 7:30 a.m. before you reach in the office? I know we're a lot of us are virtual now, but 7:30 a.m. before you reach in the office, before you're around your computer, you're checking your email and it says, "Oh, the building is burning down. Please click on this link and log in to view the camera feed."
And
A lot of time those things will catch you.
absolutely right. And you know why things that is also something that you are susceptible when you're checking communication on the phone is it's very difficult to check and verify the link before you click
Yes,
on it. Because
exactly.
unlike your email program, your Outlook or Thunderbird or whatever, you can hover over the link to see where it's supposed to go, or you can copy and paste it somewhere to see. But if you're doing it on your phone, and I've seen this, you're doing it on your phone, if it looks legit enough, because you have such small real estate and limited ability to check, you go ahead and do it, and before you know it. So no, that is very, very, very true. We have to ensure that all devices are protected, but also vigilance is exercised across all devices. Great, some great points there. Um,
Yeah.
Warren, let me, you know, you brought up the whole idea of fraud and fraudulent activities, and I mean that's on the law enforcement side, where you're seeing a lot of activity. And I see some questions in the comments bar here. Anne Marie, we're going to get to you. It's a very good question, so I'm going to get to that shortly. But Warren, um, a lot of, and we've seen it in the news. Um, we won't call those names, but we've seen it in the news where a lot of fraud has occurred in many different organizations, right? Um, we've seen where there are a lot of data breaches in organizations as well. What I kind of want to touch on is, okay, so my business gets attacked, or I'm a victim of an attack or something like that. If I want to try to get to the bottom of that, what am I supposed to do? I mean, is it simply a matter of just picking up the phone, calling the police and saying, "Listen, a man just robbed my things"? What am I supposed to do? And if you can frame it in terms of what a business should do, what an individual should do.
Well, right across the board, I mean, citizens of Jamaica are outside of our jurisdiction. A crime is a crime. JCF is here to serve and protect the citizens of this country and who becomes victims from perpetrators, whether here or outside of the country. We're a little village now, so there is no borders to the internet. It's unregulated, so actors can come from anywhere across the globe. But let's say, for argument's sake, you're a Jamaican and you are in Jamaica, you have been affected. Just like any other crime, where you would visit a police station and make a report, because we do have the Cybercrime Act of 2015, which is now being revised, reviewed. So, in short order, you will have a new act. It's a breach of the Cybercrime Act. I'd encourage everyone to, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Get a copy of the Cybercrime Act, either from the National Printry, or it's online now, and know what the Act speaks about in terms of offenses, so you know when there is an activity, there is a breach on your system, whether you're an individual or you're a business. Is that a crime against me? Is it a breach? Is it a criminal act? Because we find out that sometimes in this digital space, we do have a lot of civil litigations, persons that are impacted, by other persons, but it's not criminal. So it's for every citizen to get abreast with the laws of the land, the Cybercrime Act, to see where there's a breach. Cybercrime Act, the main elements that are involved. There must be a computer, there must be a network, such as the World Wide Web, of a local area network or a wide area network. Once those two components are involved and you do your business in that space, then the law is there to protect you, because it means that you're not doing it the normal or traditional way. You're now doing it a new way. So, for example, we say fraud, you're doing your banking online. So, you're transferring funds online, you're checking your balance online, you're shopping online. So, it's just like someone come to hold you up and take away your money, but they do it online. So, it's a fraudulent act, it's a breach, and of course you have had some losses, you're affected. So you, whichever the nearest police station closest to you, you'd visit that police station, make that report, and the police personnel is there, should receive your report, and of course take steps to commence an investigation. And of course the resources and the tools are in the toolbox for the JCF members. And if we need technical support, then they'll reach out to CFCD, or if it is at in a different realm of things, Mocha is also available. So they can either come to Mocha also, they can come to CTOC if you feel more comfortable in doing that. But let's say a police station is in Moko, somewhere where your business is operating in that police division, then you don't have to come all the way to Mocha or to CETA. You can go there just to say, make a report. The police officer there should appreciate your report and take steps to initiate an investigation, and, of course, seek the necessary internal support to have a proper investigation. So that's the process.
All right. So, and just to be clear, when you go to the police station, the officers on duty there, have they been equipped and have they been trained to take the necessary details for such a crime or such an attack, so that if I walk in there and I start giving a lot of information, are they equipped to treat with that kind of thing, or is it that you go in there, you give them a general thing, and then after you report that, then perhaps somebody from CTOC or wherever may engage you after? Is what's the capacity at the local station to handle these kinds of requests? Because I mean, if I'm a big business, and an attack occurs, I'm not sure if I would want to go to my friendly neighborhood police station to report that. So are they equipped to treat with those kinds of things?
Good question. So every police that graduates from the academy is empowered and equipped to do general things. In terms of persons coming to the station to report, they take a statement. So you're coming to make a report. They are trained to reports. Irrespective of if cybercrime or murder or whatever it is, that's what they're trained to do. So they appreciate the report, and of course, from there, they are guided by their supervisors as to the necessary resources that are required to support the investigation after it has been assigned to an investigator. Of course, we do detectives and other you know um, additional training for other persons who will continue the investigation, and they know what is available to them in the JCF or a MOCA, where to go, when to go, how to go, why to go to get what is necessary. So
Okay.
indeed, they are trained and equipped to deal with these kind of reports.
Okay, that's good news. Let me take a question from the audience. And again, this will be directed at you, Warren. And I think you kind of touched on it earlier. But Anne-Marie Brown was asking, is there any legislative framework that acts as a compulsory requirement for businesses to protect Jamaicans, or I guess their customers, against cyber attacks, or if there are any audit requirements to identify attacks? So from the legislative framework, Warren, I'd ask you to speak on that. Rory, after Warren, I'd ask you to speak about the audit requirements as it relates to identifying attacks. But from the law standpoint, what are the laws and the legislations out there that come into play when we're talking about cyber attacks?
All right. So as I said before, there are two main tools that are available now in terms of legislation. The Cybercrime Act of 2015, which is now being revised. As I said, persons must get themselves au fait with what breaches will take place. How is it that it becomes a criminal offense? So the law clearly stipulates as to what is a breach, what are the fines and penalties as it relates to that breach. And of course, the newly enacted data protection legislation is also there, of course, to protect citizens and business. That's another tool. And those are the main tools that we have right now in terms of legislation to protect citizens against cyber attacks. So, in terms of compulsory, the Data Protection Act will, the different areas of the act will tell you what is compulsory as it relates to business in terms of protecting citizens' data and what are their responsibilities. So those are the tools, and I think for now, Jamaica is making some strides to be, on par with the rest of the world. Because as I said, the internet has no borders, so perpetrator can come from anywhere. And within the Caribbean, we are trying to harmonize these legislation to know that whatever is a crime, a cyber crime in Trinidad, for example, it won't be different as an electronic fraud in Jamaica. So that if a perpetrator commits a breach anywhere across the region, wherever it is, on whichever island or jurisdiction, the laws can be applied just the same, and there is no difference. But there are strides that are being made not only in Jamaica, but as I said, regionally within the Caribbean. So things are happening, and of course, we're trying to be on par with the rest of the world.
Okay, well that's good to hear. I note that you said earlier the Cyber Crimes Act is being reviewed. Can you speak a little bit about that before I hit up Rory on the audit side of things? That's
Right.
for you, Warren.
So being reviewed at this point, as you know, I think it's about to be tabled at this point. I mean, it was brought to it's now. I think it has passed the select committee from where we sit as practitioners and an agency that receive reports. We're able to look at trends, make recommendations. I think and there are other players within the Jamaican realm of things which are also included to make their submission also. I think through the Ministry of National Security, we have made a submission. A lot of our what we have pointed out, and recommended, taken into consideration. So it is now tabled, and of course, it's in the House of Parliament for a debate, and of course to be ratified, and of course in a short while to be passed as law as we speak. But indeed, that's what we have done so far.
Okay, great. So moving to your Rory, one of the things that many businesses sometimes overlook is, again, because they don't feel that anybody is going to attack them. They don't have any valuable information. One of the things they don't do is to actually assess their cybersecurity posture. They don't do assessments, and I know companies like Symptai, my company, M6 Solutions, companies like T-Tech, and others help companies to find out where they stand as it relates to their cybersecurity posture. Can you speak a little bit about what companies need to do to adequately assess themselves, then protect themselves, and then to sustain themselves against these kinds of attacks? Can you speak a little bit about that? Because I know you are big into the auditing component as it relates to security.
Correct. So typically, we would start by have a recommendation in terms of having periodic assessment. That's the baseline, and periodic maybe once a year. However, I go a step further and say we need to have continuous security assessment. So yes, you may have your annual penetration test, and there's a difference between a penetration test and a vulnerability assessment. So typically a vulnerability assessment is utilizing vulnerability scanners out there that would identify vulnerabilities, but not necessarily exploit the vulnerabilities. When we do a penetration test, which we prefer to do in terms of some of the services that we offer, and a penetration test may range from a network assessment, a wireless assessment, a web application, assessing the posture of these services that you're providing, the IT assets, your websites, your network, your servers, your mobile phones, your mobile applications, doing assessments of these. So yes, we start by doing the vulnerability scan, but when we're doing the penetration test, we'll go a step further and actually exploit vulnerabilities. So we may search for zero-day vulnerabilities or zero-day exploits, meaning that identifying new weaknesses in the application, identifying new weaknesses in the code. We're looking on the source code, looking on not just the front end of the application. So a lot of time, you may look on a website and say that yes, website looks good, it's secure. That's not necessarily the case. When we do the testing, we strip away the website. Most of the time, we don't even look on the front end of the website. We look on all the different requests that are being sent between the front end of the application and the back end. So we intercept the requests, we play with the requests, we forge the requests, we try to trick the server in terms of authentication, we try to do different types of brute force attacks. These are some of the stuff that we do with a penetration test. So it's much more advanced than just doing a scan. Doing a scan is still important, and we do recommend at least quarterly doing a scan against your assets. So stepping way back now, and that's just a discussion about the different penetration testing. What's important is that you need to have a framework that guide you. Yes, we have the laws, the Cybercrimes Act, the data protection, and those are great. However, you still want to adopt a security framework, and it's a bit different in terms of adopting a security framework, because you have different types of frameworks out there. You may hear about COBIT, ISO, NIST. I can list so many different frameworks. When we typically assess our client environments, we assess them against frameworks in terms of best practice industry standards. So for example, a framework may define how often do you do a security test? What is your password complexity? Meaning, how long should your password be? How often do you change your password? What are the coding standards used? How do you patch your system? What is your update procedure? All of these will be covered in the framework. And in terms of assessing your posture, it has to be continuous. So some of our clients even go a step further, and we are assisting them when they're building their applications. So not just once it's built, then you do an assessment. While you're building the application, you're doing the assessment. You're testing it from a security perspective. So security is now introduced from as early as possible, from the concept, from the design, from the architecture stage.
So sounds like what you're talking about from a business standpoint is the creation of a cybersecurity strategy, so to speak. And in addition to that strategy, because we know it's not a matter of if but when. Another important thing I would want to touch on is the response plan. Because what we've seen is um, a lot of businesses may invest in doing assessments and so on. They go buy antivirus and all sorts of wonderful things. But then an attack occurs, and then they're like, okay, now what do we do?
They don't know what to do.
They don't know what to do.
And that happens a lot. But
Yes.
but the other part that's also scary is that they have the plan, but no one knows how to use the plan, or no one practices the plan. So yes, they have a fancy document that's their incident response plan to say,
Right.
this is what we should do if there's a ransomware. But have you ever tested that plan?
So can you speak to the importance of having a strategy, having a response plan? What typically is in a response plan? Because I would say that part of the response plan is engaging law enforcement.
Yes,
Depending on what has happened to your entity. So can you just speak really quickly on that, because I have some questions in the chat, and then I want to move on to another aspect of protecting against cyber attacks. So can you speak to the strategy, but also the response plan, and what does a response plan typically look like?
So the response plan can form different ways, but typically included in like your disaster recovery plan or your actual incident response plan. Some organizations may integrate it into one big document. Others may have it as a working document that outlines this is the role that you're going to play in responding to an incident. What's typically important is that you have to identify what assets are critical to your organization. Meaning the crown jewels, what's the most critical asset? What is high priority? What system cannot go down? So you start thinking about recovery point objective, recovery time objectives, meaning how long can this system be down? Can it never be down? What type of redundancy are you going to build into that system? How much data can you lose from the system? Those are some of the things that you're going to consider. Once you rank the importance or the criticality of the systems, then you need to start thinking about what are the steps that you have in place to adequately protect the system. If you don't have adequate protection in place, if I do get a breach, if there is a compromise, what can I do to then recover? Or what can I do to mitigate the risk? What can I do to try and minimize the compromise? Is it a case that you're going to disconnect the device? Are you going to turn off the device? So we don't recommend restarting the server or shutting down, because if you're going to go and contact the JCF or even us, we do forensic investigation. You need to be able to preserve some of that information, but still you need to isolate the device. You need to isolate the application. You need to also have the different roles that members are going to play in the process. So it's not just only IT that's going to be involved. It's not a case that yes, it's an IT problem. The website is down, the website is compromised. Marketing may be involved. The communication teams may be involved. So everybody would have a role to play. The CEO may have to send an email communication or a notification. You may have to report it to the different organizations, the different companies. You need to have those contact numbers. You need to also advise the customers that may be impacted, the employees that may also be impacted, because it may be an internal system. They also would have a role to play. What are your backup procedures that you may have? Did you have a continuous backup? Is your backup on the same system that is now impacted? Do you have an off-site backup?
Yes.
How do you recover?
A lot of stuff to contemplate. And again, just from some of the experiences we've had, you talk about backups. And a lot of times companies are running backups, but they're never testing the restores. The restores actually work.
We've seen cases where a backup is run and the system is compromised with ransomware, and they back up the ransomware in the backup. When they go to restore the backup, the ransomware is already in it. So even the type of backup system that you have, you need to ensure that it is testing if ransomware is actually in the backup that is being done.
Indeed, that's absolutely true. There's a question I want to ask you, Warren. One of the trends that we're seeing globally is the involvement of nation states in cyber attacks. So I often say wars of the future won't be fought with bullets and bombs, but with ones and zeros. Um, and what you find is there are attacks that target national resources, critical infrastructure. Your JPS, your NWC. We've seen in states in the US where cyber attacks were launched against water supply companies to tame the water supply, and sounds scary, but it actually happens. Or the power companies are targeted, and so on. What I want to ask is, what, from your perspective, what is being done or what can be done by the government? Because now that increases the responsibility to the government. What can be done or is being done by the government to protect national assets from attack? Because now what happens is, if national assets that are critical to businesses running are attacked, they now affect businesses. So now businesses can't function. What is being done at that level to protect us from cyber attacks? That's for you, Warren.
All right. Yes, yes. All right, you're kind of breaking in and out, but nevertheless, I think I've got the gist of what you're saying. But you mentioned a national cybersecurity strategy, and I know from where you sit and I sit, we have been a part of the our preparation of that document. So we have made some significant contribution to that, and of course that reside with the JA cert, Jamaica cert. So some strides has been it over the years, maybe from 2016 onwards, where the first national cybersecurity strategy was established. It has been revised now as the landscape has continuously changed to include this changing environment. So that is available. And of course, part of what is in that strategy is looking at critical infrastructures such as the telcos, the water, the gas. All of these things are, that is dependent upon technology for its day-to-day operation. So the mere fact that it is in that strategy, all the government needs to do now is to, fully roll out the strategy and make, both public and private organizations be aware of the strategy. Don't put it in a corner, as Rory would say, and don't read it. Yes, we need to apply it as best as possible, because it means that some work has been done to look at what is happening in the landscape, and if there should be an event, an attack, then the strategy will now be applied and enforced, such that we can have, as well as a recovery plan, what to do, from point A to
Right.
point B, to
And
ensure that,
and
the
you
economy
mentioned
keep
something.
rolling. Yes.
You mentioned something a while ago. You mentioned that there is a national cybersecurity strategy. So people, again, there is a national cybersecurity strategy. But you mentioned an entity while you were talking called the CERT, which is the Cyber Incident
Right.
Response Team. Speak a little, just
Yeah.
really quickly, about what the CERT is, what it does, and how individuals and companies can engage with the CERT.
Right. So the Jamaica CERT has been established as the agency representing government, where if their businesses are attacked and there's a breach of their systems, this is the agency that you need to report these incidents to. They monitor government systems. They also have the necessary resources and skill sets to assist public private entities too, to give them certain guidelines. And of course, once it has been reported to them, if it's non-criminal, then they will issue advisories on what to do, what not to do. But if it's criminal, then they will pass it on to the JCF Cybercrimes Unit or MOCA to do the necessary investigation.
Great. All right. So, and I'm getting my time warning. Right? So much to talk about here. One thing I want to talk about really quickly: cyber insurance. Rory, can you speak really quickly on that? Is there such a thing available in Jamaica for business, cyber insurance?
Yeah, yes, it is. It is available in Jamaica. One of the requirements also a few years ago that we had to go through as a company was that we required cyber insurance to get certain certifications and accreditation as a company, meaning that to kind of reduce some of the risks, you have to have certain type of cyber insurance.
All right.
I think it's getting a little more stringent now because you have to prove that you had security controls in place, you had security measures implemented. So just in case a ransomware, for example, impacted your company, they do not have to pay that cyber insurance claim. Because if you did not have the adequate controls in place, then they can. It's similar to a car insurance, pretty much.
Right. So the good thing is there is cyber insurance, and I know, companies like BCIC, I think, Key Insurance, and a couple of them.
General
Accident, yes, that's correct. All right, so time is upon us. I see a question here from Anne-Marie. Is there any consideration to examine the risk of AI and cyber attacks and develop legislative framework around it? All right, so, and I'm going to ask the panel to talk about that. But I'll tell you, tomorrow I'm presenting at an event at the UCC, University of Commonwealth Caribbean, where I'm actually talking about AI and cybersecurity. And we're going to have a discussion about that and how it plays into education. So if you're in Jamaica and you have time tomorrow at 9 o'clock, you can go down to UCC and check that out. The last thing I want to do, again, is to really just ask each one of you. And then I have a question for the audience. I hope my moderator will allow me a little extra time. But I would just ask each one of you to give, like a quick some closing remarks about businesses and individuals, how they can protect themselves. I'll start with Warren, and then Rory can give. I'll give you, 60 seconds to just, give some closing remarks as it relates to protecting yourself against cyber attacks. Warren?
All right, simply those hardware and software tools and equipment and resources that are available, the virus protection, the firewall protection, and of course, I would encourage you to have strategies in place so that if there is an incident, you know how to respond, and of course, that will include the necessary protective measures that needs to be in place.
Great, Rory.
Yeah, just add on to that is that you need to be security conscious. So you can have all of the tools and the technology in place, but if a user shares or sells a password, if a user clicks on a links, most of the time it will bypass it. The human element is very important. We always speak about the human firewall. Even with social engineering, it plays on the psychological weaknesses of humans in terms of the curiosity to want to click on a link, to want to get a prize. So it's very important that we consider security training and get tested, get security tested, get a penetration test. Most of the times you will be very, very important that you identify these weaknesses as early as possible.
And I think that's an excellent point to start to wrap up on, because one of the biggest things that organizations overlook is employee training and awareness. Because the weakest link is the person holding on to the mouse. and clicking away. So one of the most important things both individuals and organizations need to do is make your employees more aware. So you need to do security training. And as an individual, make yourself more aware about the dangers that exist and are lurking out in the digital space. It is very important to become aware. The more aware you are, is the easier it is to protect yourself. What I would like to do, I do have so Tech Talk normally has, a question that they put out to the audience. And I'm going to put the question out. I'm going to ask the question, and then I will take some responses. The question is, what is two-factor or multi-factor authentication, and how can it be used to prevent or mitigate cyber attacks? So you can put your comments in the comment area. While you do that, again, I just want to remind you that next month, May 30th, the Tech Talk Tuesday will be about getting prepared for the Data Protection Act. This act is game-changing, but it's also, seismic in its effects. Every business that has information about its customers will be impacted by this piece of legislation, no matter how small or large you are. So I think it's something that you want to get some information about. Remember, you can follow JTDA on all social media platforms at the JTDA. And don't forget, on May 11th to 14th this year, the JCF Transformations event, where you're going to see a lot of the technologies and capabilities of the JCF that, the JCF has been going through some major transformations, and their capacity and capability has been, increased quite a bit. So they're gonna, give you a little eye into what they can do. So in wrapping up, we have talked about the threats that are out there, phishing, ransomware, and so on. We've talked about what businesses have to do to protect themselves and prepare. So you need a cybersecurity strategy, you need an incident response, but you also need incident response plan. But you also need to continuously assess and check what's happening. Do your penetration testing, do your vulnerability assessments, and so on. The same goes for users. Get aware, get protection, utilize, what they call internet security suites that protect all of your devices, that give you protection on your phone, on your tablet, on your laptop, and your desktop. But even more so, it gives you things like virtual private network security and so on. Additionally, what do you do when something happens? Not if, but when something happens. You have the ability to report to your police station, right? They are equipped to take those reports. You can report to the CERT, the Jamaica Cyber Incident Response Team. The links are in the chat. You can also report, depending on the nature of the incident, to CTOC if you feel more comfortable there. And depending again on the extent and size of the kind of incident, even MOCA might get involved as well. So, and finally, avail yourself of the different laws that govern this space. The Cybercrimes Act, the Data Protection Act, these are critical legislations that help you to understand what constitutes a crime, what you must do as a business to be compliant as it relates to protecting not only your business, but the information about people that you keep. Let's see, two-factor authentication answers here.
I think that's a good thing to touch on, because a lot of time we think about two-factor authentication as, yes, I'm fully protected just in case, but we've seen some interesting things in some of our security assessments, and for example, we're able to bypass two-factor authentication sometimes, depending on how it's implemented.
It's quite possible to do so, absolutely. So what we're seeing here, some of the answers: two-factor authentication provides an additional layer of security beyond passwords and so on, makes it harder for attackers. It makes it harder. It's akin to adding a grill, but
it's annoying at times, but still it can be bypassed.
Yes,
depending on how you approach it.
But what you're trying to do here, and they how I try to explain it to many of my clients is like, look, if you're a house on a road and your house have grill, alarm system, dog, electronic gate, but your neighbor don't have none of that, that's where the thief going, because your house is more of a problem for him to attack than the one that has none of that. So really what you're trying to do is make things more difficult for attackers. And in doing so, the more layers that you have, is the better it is for you in protecting yourself, which is why, again, as an individual or as a business, you want to try to make sure that you're constantly vigilant, and don't assume that because you're small or that because you're in Jamaica that the attackers are not out for you. I'll tell you why they're out for you: because we're low-hanging fruit. We don't invest in security, so we're easy targets. With that said, I'd like to thank our guests, Rory Ebanks, Deputy Superintendent Warren Williams, for sharing some great information with us. I'd like to also thank the audience for sitting in, indulging us, and there were some really good questions and feedback in the comments as well. So with that said, don't forget May 30th, Data Protection Act. Very, very important discussion to have. And with that said, I thank you. My name is Trevor Forrest. I was your host today, and I hope that this discussion, this tech talk, was helpful for you. With that said, thank you, and you guys have a great night. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you all.
Great.
Thank you. All right, cool.